Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Seek Therapy Podcast. It's me, Jasmine,
And America.
And Jasmine Ty.
and we are back. So, how's everything been this week? What's been our highlight? What's been our challenge? Um, this week, so y'all know I was telling y'all about the strike and how much anxiety I had. So, I had decided to just stay home.
Out of the way.
So I ducked off and stayed home. Um, and so it was nice to just be able to rest and reset and, focus on some studying, um, work out. Like, I still took Janae to daycare. And so I was able to, like, take naps and shit. So that was very nice. That was very needed. Um, and I was grateful for that. We came back to work on Friday. So, yeah, I don't know why they didn't just do Wednesday through Friday. Let's just, you know, but it is what it is. My challenge is that, so I shared with y'all last week that we're going to be moving and buying a bigger house. And so my challenge is that I have to cut down on my spending. I have to budget and like stick to it. So I haven't done Postmates or anything like that. So that's been nice. And then right before we hopped on, I saw that my therapist isn't accepting my insurance anymore.
Oh no.
Shit.
So I'm not going to change to a different person. I'm just going to have to pay out of pocket, which I'm talking about, decreasing my spending, and now I have another bill, but it's something that I find value in. And so that's what I say to people when they're like, oh, it's something I find value in. And so it's something I'm willing to budget into my lifestyle. So that has been my challenge. What's new with you, America?
Um, let me think about my challenge. But for a highlight, I guess with the time going forward, back, forward, what we do? Bring ahead, forward. Um, that has been really helpful because as a seasonal affective girly, um, having to be sunlight longer has been helpful. So, interestingly enough, last week I had made adjustments to the schedule without even realizing I had did it, and I'm thankful I did ahead of time. So every day I was done by at least 3 or 4, which if that's a big deal. And I only saw like 3 or 4 people most days, so that's an adjustment. And so I was able to do. I think a couple episodes ago I told y'all about the 80 things to do after work situation. So I was able to do those. And that was really nice and refreshing. And I didn't find myself like trying to do the revenge procrastination. So I got to do things that were fun. I did a thing or two that was productive, household chore, and then was able to go to bed. So that was nice. And then my challenge. What's my challenge? What's my challenge? I had to catch myself last night because more, I felt less chaotic. Things felt less chaotic last week. And so I had to catch myself because that's not my norm. And so a challenge is just allowing myself to enter a period of letting my brain know that it's safe enough to relax. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. And like no, something bad isn't about to happen. just because things feel good. Like this is how it's supposed to feel. You deserve for things to feel good and calm and grounded. So that was a little bit of a challenge.
I like that. Um, I have to say, so I would say I actually wrote down shaking off seasonal depression as my challenge. Um, but when we spring forward in the time, that just it gives me a little pep in my step because that means that we're coming up on summer when the sun doesn't go down until 9. And like those are really that's just like my favorite time of the year personally. Um, I would say definitely my highlight has been so for me, my word for 2023 uh, is flourish. And so the start of spring, the beginning of the year was a little rocky, but for me, the start of spring uh, was my new challenge, right? It's me getting started. And so it's only been a week, but I feel good. I'm being intentional about my time and my energy. And I'm confident I have a few family trips coming up this year to Mexico, to Thailand, and like I want to feel good. I don't want to be feeling some type of way.
Casually going to Thailand?
Yes, on my daddy's dime too. That's the best part, girl. This is why I'm glad I'm not married yet because I don't
Can't wait
know.
to.
No, for real. It's for my stepsister's 30th birthday. And so my dad's wife, her mom is like coordinating everything, but of course it's become now a family trip. And so, yeah. And it's funny because it's like I feel like if I were married, I don't know that he would split, you know what I mean, foot the bill for me in these instances. So, I'm glad to be a single black woman in America. So yeah, I'm excited about that, but I'm determined that this is the year that uh, I really discipline myself. You know what I mean? Like I'm here, I ain't got time for the bullshit anymore. So yeah.
Per.
It's up and it's stuck.
So y'all know we like to put y'all on new things. So,
Period.
Jasmine, what's your new for the week?
My Mew Mew. I wish it was a Mew Mew, right? My new for the week is Elaine Welteroth's masterclass. I had watched it a year ago when it first came out, and since then, it's just been in my mind to really sit down and write out the steps that she gave about being intentional and in where you want your career to go, what spaces you want to occupy.
Mm.
And I just so happened to go out to dinner with my bonus mom um, earlier this week. And we sat down, and we don't normally like go out to dinner, just the two of us, or we haven't done that in a while. But she just randomly was on my side of town and hit me up. And so we met up for dinner, and she's been with well, I don't want to say her job, but she's a chemical engineer and she's been with her company for 20 plus years. And so she meets with a colleague and they start talking about the very things that are in this video that Elaine is talking about. And it's basically a career map, writing out what spaces you want to occupy and you know, how you would necessarily get there and start being intentional, writing it down, visualizing, and we talked about these things, and so it was just validating for me um, that I can create this for myself and truly have a parent that is doing the same, but I can lean on her wisdom through
Mm-hmm.
the process. And so I think it's time uh, that I revisit that, and just continue this season of being intentional and setting up my future, because I was not thinking about Jasmine Tide 10, 20 years from now when I was in my 20s. Like I was really just trying to survive,
Mm-hmm.
process trauma, and now I'm in a different place. It's a new decade. It's time. It is time. What
Good.
about you, America? What's new for you?
And so it's not necessarily a new thing, but it's something I just finished. Well, I watched two things. Which one do I want to share? If you like reality is competition shows, please watch the new season of Love is Blind. Um,
Really?
yes, the new season came
Oh,
on Friday.
okay.
Of course, it's on Netflix. Watch it and get you a chuckle or nine.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a sucker for the reality love shows,
Mm,
competition shows. So just go get you some joy, some really good belly chuckles. Um, yeah, it's been phenomenal. Much there's more black people this go around. You know, normally we don't get to see black
okay.
folks fall in love on there. So there's more of that. So that's nice to
Are
see.
they actually doing that? Are they falling in love?
There's more
Okay.
black people on there this
All
season,
right.
and
Okay.
they are you know, yeah. And I can't speak to the fall in love piece, but I would say yes, a little bit. But there's still much to be desired as far as um obviously still a lot of colorism in the
Mhm,
space of reality dating shows and competitions.
mhm.
So that's still pretty obvious in this season. Still need some work around representation of body because everybody not skinny and everybody that wants to be in love is not 115 pounds. But better than they have done previously, I would argue. So
Alright,
it has been a joy. It's a hoot.
alright. I know that first season, the couple, I forget the guy's name.
Lauren and Cameron.
Well, they're still together,
Mhm.
but the black couple, I know her name was Diamond. I can't think of the guy's name,
Yeah,
maybe Chris or something, but just the whole blow up about him being bisexual,
his name
it
is.
was just so uncomfortable to watch, and I remember the whole time yelling at the TV, "Why didn't you say that in the pod?" You
Carlton.
know? Carlton, and then to, like, be in his confessionals telling the camera where, like, "I've been discriminated against for this, women have left me for this, people think I'm gay for this." And it's like, well, if that is a big insecurity of yours, with this type of social experiment, why not just lead with that
Right.
and see what happens? And so that just really bothered me. Um, yeah. We didn't talk about that in our reality TV episode, but that was definitely a moment in reality television.
He is the epitome of self sabotage too, because
Mhm.
I believe fully that if he would have told her in the beginning that he was bisexual and explained his history to her, I think they could have made it work
I
because
agree.
she seems to be a very open human, but he didn't give her the chance. And that
Exactly.
whole other thing. But
He didn't give her the option, and then as soon as he did tell her and she responded in the way that is typical, it was self-sabotage. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
because he thought she was mad because he was bisexual, I would argue she was mad because he lied or he
Right,
omitted.
right. And at this point, now we're engaged, and you're already starting this off with keeping something huge from me? Yeah,
Right.
and that's a deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that also Queen's Court on Peacock is a good little reality love show. It has Tamar, Nivea, and Evelyn Lozada on there. And it is interesting. Like they have good, deep conversations. And so I think that is also a good part of reality TV and love and all that. Um, my new before Janae continues is the Housemaids series. It's a book series. I mean, I don't know if it's a book series, but it's two books, and I read them both this month. The first one is The Housemaid, and I read it in one day. And then The Housemaid Secret, I read in 2 days. So it's really good. It's really interesting. They're by Frida McFadden, and they are just page turners. I've told my friends about it. They just like, I'm done with the book. What's next? So, um, these are the kinds of stories that I like to read about, like thrillers, like shocking stuff. So pull up on a good book and do not read One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose because that was boring.
Be aware.
Fun fact, America.
Hmm?
I be feeling like you forget that we could see you.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the book on Amazon. My bad.
You was reading the synopsis.
Hmm.
It sound interesting.
It does.
I highly recommend. And since I got the Kindle, I literally have read so many books so quick. So, this is not sponsored.
Yes.
I feel like I'm always talking about the Kindle, but yeah. Um, shutting down.
Mm.
Sometimes you just want to shut it down.
I was about to say, what's the difference?
Sometimes people say things that make you want to shut down, right? And whether that is because you are processing the disrespect that just came your way, um, or you don't want to engage in like a confrontation, um, shutting down can be harmful, you know? It takes away the opportunity of having those healing and growth conversations, whether it's with like a friend or significant other, whatever the case may be. Um, and I know that it is difficult to have uncomfortable conversations and to say, like, hey, when you talked about my, I don't know, whatever, like I felt this way, it's uncomfortable. I understand that. And it's not normal to not address your feelings or concerns with people and just continue on. What has been your experience? Like, do you ever find yourself shutting down? Maybe like your friend does some raggedy shit. Do you find yourself shutting down, like shutting off, not wanting to confront it, not wanting to talk about it? Or are you someone who's wanting to talk about it? And if you do want to talk about it, do you want to talk about it right then when the disrespect ensues, or after you have time to kind of process it?
Hmm.
So I see shutting down as a coping mechanism,
Hmm.
and I see it as a trauma response. So, of course, when we're talking about fight, fleet, freeze, or fawn, to me, in that moment of shutting down, that's your freeze system kicking in. And so that is happening in that moment to protect you and hell, sometimes maybe other
To
people,
protect other people.
okay,
Yeah.
from what may or may not happen if you have your knee jerk response. I have found myself sometimes in those moments of freeze, and it's almost like a disassociation. So I'm not even here anymore. I am over there. Because if I'm here, we're going to have a problem.
Hmm.
And that for me, I'm not conflict avoidant at all. In fact,
I'm gonna press the issue. Guess what? I have time today.
and any other day, or at least that has been my default. So I
Mhm.
would say in times of if I'm feeling unsafe in my body, historically it has been a fight, typically a fight situation, whether that's physical or that's a verbal, usually verbal. Um, and so that has been my go-to. I've noticed as I've gotten older though, it's been more of a freeze. And it's I'm going to get quiet. I'm no longer present. And then when I have the opportunity, I'm then processing how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I can come back to this conversation. Now, sometimes it feels like in those moments, it's almost like I don't care. And I think that's the defense mechanism too, right? Of like, I don't
Right.
care. It's not a big deal. It don't matter. It's not worth it.
Nonchalant.
Like, yeah, it is what it is. Which is why people are always like, wow, you're cool as a cucumber. Your things can be so chaotic, and you just like, yep, okay, cool. But that's because I was taught you don't let people see you sweat. So in those situations, that kind of becomes my go-to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but also I think there's a certain level of vulnerability that comes from being willing to have conversations and tell somebody like I need a minute, and then coming back and saying, that was some raggedy shit you said, or what you said
Mm-hmm.
really hurt my feelings, and
Right.
we need to have a conversation about this, or what you said I heard. And that takes a lot of self-awareness, and that takes a lot of practice. And for most of us, especially in terms of identifying our feelings and then communicating them with people, that's not necessarily a skill that we've been taught.
Right.
Yeah. Ooh, I agree 100%. First, when I think shutting down, I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that comes to my mind is what I do when I'm depressed, which is
Mm,
shutting out.
Shut down.
Yes. Shut it home. Um, when it comes to confrontation with people, I too have noticed the older I get, the more steadfast I am in just being grounded in myself, right? And so I am liable to say something in the moment. I am also always that person that has something even sassier to say 2 hours later after the situation.
after I ruminated on it.
I have
literally.
a few more reads to give you 2 hours after the situation.
And
But I
another thing.
have another thing. Um, so yeah, I'm leaning more towards that with age, but I am definitely uh, understanding and can relate to just I was raised in a way to minimize myself.
Mm,
And so it has taken a lot of unlearning to do
mhm.
that. And when I am hurt or feeling defensive, it was real quick in the past to minimize myself, to make
Right.
myself smaller.
Right.
And and so yeah, it's taken time to get out of that and not to necessarily puff my chest to seem bigger because that can also be a defense mechanism.
Right.
But to rather just uh, stand my ground and assert myself.
Yeah.
My mom and I go back and forth because I there are some things that I'm still trying to break free of between like being respectful, especially when it's older black women that are crossing a line. I notice that I don't necessarily notice it. My mom calls me out of it and she'll be like, "You're not a little kid anymore. Like you are also a grown ass woman."
Mm,
Just
Period.
because this is an elder doesn't mean you have to necessarily bite your tongue. There's
Right.
just a way of checking any bitch, really, depending
mhm.
Period.
on how put out you put it. And so those are lessons that I am still learning. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've never had an issue addressing my feelings ever. I recall being in middle school and my friend did something that pissed me off, and she was like, "Are you mad at me?" And I was like, "Yes." And that was like the conversation. And so for me, like I think it's been difficult trying to decide what deserves me like having those conversations and what doesn't, right? Because it's very easy to be reactive. Like if you're looking for reasons to get upset, you can find them. And so I think I've been working on that part because I know when I first got to my job, it was like, oh, I got to check them, But now I'm like, let me just kind of take a step back and read from just like plain eyes and not eyes that are upset because they did this X, Y, and Z last week, you know? And so in relationships, especially in my last relationship, um, it was very easy to shut down because that nigga didn't know how to express himself effectively. So it's like, we're not about to have this conversation because you don't even have the awareness to verbalize what's going on. And so me telling you something will just result in you trying to gaslight me.
Mm.
And so that's why when I got with Joe and he did do minor things that would like irritate me, and I would just like not want to talk about it. And he's like, what's going on? Like, what did I do? Whatever the case may be. And so he really pushed me. Look at this, a therapist not wanting to talk about it. He really pushed me to have those uncomfortable conversations. And that's something that never happened in my last little situation. Like that was never the norm. And so there wasn't an opportunity to shut down because he made it a safe space to address and confront whatever is irritating me. And I'm still waiting for the day for that I say something, you know, that he did something that irritated me where he responds in a negative way. It hasn't happened. Not to say that like he just yes, man, like no, not at all, but he's never invalidated my feelings, you know. And so I think that's what makes a difference. If you have a partner that allows you that space to be vulnerable and say like, "Hey, I was mad that you did X, Y, and Z," you know, then you're more willing to do that. And if you're able to do that in that relationship, you're more likely to do that in other relationships too.
Mhm.
But when it's not safe to do that in that relationship, and maybe it's hasn't been safe to do that in friendships, then it's given. I'm about to shut it on down. I I've had friends that would have situations happen and it would upset them, right? No one knew that it upset them because it was never explicitly stated to the person, at least, right?
Mhm.
But everything's just building and building. And 2 years later, when you did this in 2020, what? And that is why I tell my students, like, not talking about stuff doesn't make it go away. Like, you're just gonna get mad at somebody that eat your last little chicken nugget and you're gonna let off all your trauma on them.
Mm. And that's not cute.
It's not. It's it's very much not giving cute. Why is
I
you fighting this lady over the barbecue sauce?
oh not oh my goodness. I've been guilty of that though in friendships in particular, of there being something that bothered me and it took a while for me to have that conversation. And I think that kind of goes back to how I've been conditioned. So I've been
Right.
conditioned, you don't let people see you sweat, you're gonna be calm and cool under all circumstances. So if I'm coming to somebody, well, friendship in particular, and I'm saying, hey, when you said this, and this, and did this, then that was harmful for me. It feels icky. It's like, well, does it really matter? Well, I don't really care because, bitch, I don't care about your opinion, and I don't need this, and I don't da 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 da. And what I've realized is there's a level of self protection there. So I think in
Mhm.
those instances, like I could dismiss how I felt because I didn't want to allow myself the opportunity to feel that, and then be honest about the fact that my feelings were hurt,
Right.
or be
Right.
honest about the fact that I wanted to continue to be around somebody who thought it was okay to say and do these things.
Right. Yeah. It's uncomfortable. And in times, it's like this the easiest way to deal with it. Right.
Hmm.
But in the center of it, it's like do we really have the friendship that I desire if I cannot come to you and
Right.
tell you that you hurt my feelings?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why the safety piece is important.
Right.
Also, though, there has to be a certain level of internal safety
Right.
available too. So, like, you can be around people who give you validation and make you feel safe enough to share how you feel. But if you don't feel safe enough, even identifying, acknowledging, sitting with
Right.
your feelings, it's going to be really difficult for you to have those conversations with other people, even when they want to listen.
Right. Yeah. And that takes me back to like a meme that I posted that was like, you got to stop being mad that people aren't supporting you when they can't even support themselves. And I was like,
Mhm.
not me expecting something that they can't even give themselves. Why am I tripping?
Right.
You can't even be real with yourself to then be real with me. So why am I tripping?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's for not for everybody. Some people are just trash ass people, but
Hmm.
for a lot of people though, that goes back to their childhood and their condition,
Right.
right?
Right.
Most of us, most black and brown kids, at some point or another, have heard like, "Big girls don't cry. Be a good
Mhm.
girl. Be a good boy.
Right.
Big boys don't cry. Stop crying. Do this. Do that." And
Hmm.
so we've been conditioned in many ways to believe that we can't externalize our feelings or we don't get to feel these things because these are
Right.
unacceptable emotions. And so
Right.
if you go throughout life thinking that you can't, or as you get older, Mom, I'm depressed. You better go depress them damn
Them
dishes.
dishes. Why do we have the same life?
No. What?
Woman, I am in here contemplating, okay, and you
Right.
about washing dishes.
That's my 13th reason why, bitch.
Oh my gosh. I'm
And-
gonna add that to the list.
What you mean?
Yo.
So, or you whatever, just all of the things that we, most of us, not everybody.
right.
I haven't met
Right.
nobody yet who ain't heard some phrase, but
Right.
those things teach you that when you go to people, these are your parents, right? Like these are
Right.
the closest people,
Supposed to be safety.
right? And so if you're going to them talking about your feelings and they're minimizing it, you can't be stressed, you a child, and you can't this, you a child, and wait till you become this and da 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 da. Then you learn quickly that, okay, when I tell people I'm feeling something, ooh, it feels intense. Let me go find this person that's supposed to be safe and share. You go to that person and you share, and they shut it down or minimize it. Then you
Mhm.
start to believe, especially at that age, that
Right.
okay, feelings are not safe. It's not
Right.
safe to talk about my feelings. And when I do, nothing changes. So I'm not even
Hmm.
going to bother.
Hmm.
And then you grow up into an adult who continues to do that same thing until you learn different or do different.
Right.
Yeah.
America just read somebody they rights.
No, for real. Somebody just swerved the car listening to this.
Not start a car. Please don't start,
Said,
because we cannot be held responsible for anything that happens while you listen to
right.
this podcast.
Right.
Do not
My
send us
liability insurance only cover over here. So,
right.
Right.
Do not send us
I
the
don't know
bill.
what to tell you.
right, stay focused.
Tune in next week.
Correct.
Uh, but
Shit.
yeah.
Yeah. Talk about a wig snatch. Um, yeah. I could relate to all that. I now, in order to protect my feelings, protect myself, if a situation, so for me, if I feel like like when you're like your blood just starts to boil. Like for me, when it takes a lot to make me angry, right? I've taken the personality assessments. I am heavily skewed on the laid back side. So
Wow.
it takes me a lot to like get there.
Hmm.
And once I feel those physical changes bubbling up, uh, just knowing myself, I take that step back. But there are instances where in which I'm not impacted or affected that way, then yeah, I'm gonna do my best to stand my ground.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, my mother didn't raise a punk bitch. There's no punk bitch.
Period.
I don't come from punk bitches.
Punk bitch free zone.
My
Sure.
mom has a saying. Her mantra is, "I hate hoes, hoes hate me," and just
Not she had holes on her. Goodness
And
me.
I'm looking for what the meaning is.
What you mean?
Keep it pushing.
Woo. Okay,
You know
mom.
what? Puerto Rican women from the Bronx are a different breed, you guys.
Touche.
They really are.
that that's for certain.
But yeah, I think if you are in the space, if you can recognize that past behaviors, that you do minimize yourself, that you do shrink, you do back off, and if you find yourself, I guess, beating yourself up for it or kind of playing that game with yourself, watch yourself talk, you know what I mean? If you're talking noise to yourself afterwards, then take the
Hmm.
time first to address why that is and
Right.
why you show up or maybe don't show up in the ways that you do.
Hmm. Definitely. I think that it also, I mean, at the end of the day, we know that it's hard, right? And people, what did Kim Kardashian say? No one wants to fucking work. No one wants to do the work,
Oh my God.
because it doesn't feel good to say, that this is what's happening with me to yourself and then to package it up for someone else. It just really doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then it'll stay the same. And so, what feels worse? Like, are you okay if things never change because you don't feel comfortable using your voice, even if it shakes?
Mm.
And then eventually, not even just the potential of the situation staying the same, but these emotions have to go somewhere. I don't
Somewhere.
know why we think we're walking around with these actual containers. I'm all for a containment exercise. I support it. But I don't know why we think we're walking around with these containers that just hold our emotions nice and
Mhm.
neatly. It doesn't work like that. And
Right.
these emotions are going to be stored and eventually they have to go somewhere. And I'm going to argue that's why most of us millennials are experiencing some sort of depression or anxiety right now. Like, yes, the world is on fire. Most of our life, we've seen a lot of chaos and crisis and all of that. I get that part too. But I think a
Mhm.
lot of it is for most of us, we had childhoods where we weren't able to express our emotions. Our emotions were invalidated. We've learned to just sit on them. And now at 30 plus, we're anxious
It's
as
too
hell,
much. Right.
depressed as hell because our bodies are responding to all of these emotions we've been carrying for the last 30 some years.
Right.
On top of the day-to-day shit.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so that's how I explain to my students. I'm like, okay, let's act like you have an empty backpack, right? You get waken up by your mom telling you, why the fuck didn't you clean up them dishes? Damn, you got a brick in your backpack. Okay. I told you that you need to hurry up. You're gonna be late. Another brick in your backpack. You're late to school. Why are you late? Instead of hi, good morning, boom, another brick in your backpack. You get to class, it's a pop quiz. Damn, you didn't study. Another brick in your backpack. Oh, why are you wearing Crocs and it's raining? You don't have no other shoes. It's another
Yep.
brick in your backpack. Notice I didn't say that you removed any bricks. You didn't.
Right.
You've continued to add. And so do you think that that backpack is so easy breezy? Just, oh, walking? No, it's heavy and you're going to stop moving. And
Correct.
they're like, Miss, I ain't come here for that.
Ah! Bringing them
I'm
more
like,
motherfucking
you
right.
didn't have to, but guess what? I gave it to you anyway because I love you.
Correct. I use a toilet analogy. I think I like yours a little bit better.
What's the
What's
toilet
the toilet
analogy?
one?
That eventually your emotions, think about your emotions as the things, and eventually they get clogged up if you keep putting toilet paper in it and you
Hmm.
flush and put the emotion foot. It's better than that, I promise. But yeah. And so I say eventually what happens, you hit it, the toilet is clogged and then it overflows. Now, what
Hmm.
happens when it overflows? You have to clean up all these years or months or weeks or whatever
Hmm.
of the shit, basically, shit being emotions, experiences
Right.
from the toilet.
Yeah. It's all true.
Message.
You have to do something with your feelings. If
Mhm.
someone around you that you believe to be your friend continues to make jokes that are insensitive about maybe something you've talked to them in confidence about,
Mhm.
if they continue to, disregard your boundaries, to beg you to drink with them, even though you're doing your 75 hard, these are not friends. And so you have to be able to advocate for yourself and say, like, nah, I deserve better than this, and I can let you know what I am expecting of a friend, and you can let me know if you can meet those needs. And if not, we can move through it, and I'll find a different friend that can meet those needs.
Right. Hmm.
But I do understand the privilege that I have because I have years of therapy. I have years of introspective work, I do understand that. Um, and I felt the need to, invest in myself because I was tired of doing the same things, hoping for different results.
Hmm.
Which is not the definition of insanity, but you know, it will drive you insane.
Hmm.
It grinds my gears when people say that. It's a definition of insanity. No, it's not. But all right. Um, yeah, I agree with everything y'all are saying. I can understand it from both perspectives, and it really is just about doing the introspective work. Taking that time, take a beat to really check in with yourself. Um, and I do believe also like shutting down is a defense mechanism. Yeah.
It definitely is. And at times, like, you did have to shut down, stop talking because maybe your parent would say something. And if you said something crazy to them, you'll be looking at next week. I do understand it. And at your age, it's time for you to kind of decide that this doesn't serve me anymore.
Right. Right. Because our parents carry their own shit. And hopefully in our 30s, we can see and acknowledge that. Not just our parents, this is any adult figure, any
Right.
parental figure. Um, I've told students before, even it's like, every person in the school is going through something, every adult, every student, right? But it's how you show up
Right.
first for yourself and then for others. And that applies to different areas of life. Once I realized that my parents, who were inflicting the types of tropes and things that we're talking about first onto me, that they are flawed individuals, right? They are also trying to figure out the answers.
Right.
Like Sway, they don't have them. Then it allowed me to then start breaking down their words as being Bible or
Right.
know what I mean? And just taking it as like, okay, I of course love and respect them more than other people in my life, than what a friend may say, but I can also take their words with a little less weight and
Right.
start deciphering things for myself.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get there, but just understand that there is a whole new aspect ratio of understanding on the other side of it.
Hmm.
And being clear, because sometimes you might not have actual memories of your parents or teachers or whoever caregivers making certain statements about emotions or having certain rules. But we have to also get curious about that voice that we have that tells us it's not safe or tells us that it doesn't matter. Where is this voice coming from? Whose voice is this actually? And then spending some time with that. Is it true that it's not safe to express my emotions? What would make
Right.
it feel safer? What do I need so that I can engage in this way so that I can get my needs met or at
Right.
least practice being heard?
Right. Yeah. And you know what? I do find difficult when people's parents are unwilling to hear them because I'm like, I'm doing so much work with the kid, and they are at the space where they want to share their feelings, right? And hopefully get that closure, but the parent's not there. And so we have to go back to that acceptance of who that person is, right? And say, if it isn't safe to advocate for yourself, then do find some other ways for you to get that need met,
Mhm.
because hoping that the person that has been themselves forever to be different without them wanting to actively be different, like you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So some tips that I would say as far as like moving through that avoidance shutting down behavior would be to look at what are the pros and cons of having this conversation, right?
Mhm.
What good will come from this?
Mhm.
What bad? I might feel uncomfortable and I might get my needs met if I actually state them and ask for them.
Yeah. If you
I
find
also
this,
oh
ooh,
I was
calm down,
watching
mama.
it. I was just gonna say that I also, if you have a therapist, would highly recommend doing role play with your therapist. It is awkward. It is. And it's helpful, right? And I myself love to give like examples to my clients, and they're like, just record it. I'm like, immediately not. That didn't come from your words. Like, let's find a way that feels authentic to you and your experience. So feeling comfortable and safe to have that uncomfortable exchange so that when you do actually get to that conversation, you feel prepared.
Yes. If
Mhm.
you aren't currently in therapy, then first seek therapy. And also just talking out loud, right? That I do that. I was also an only child for a long time, so I do a lot of talking to myself. Um, but just talking the situation, the scenario out loud so that you are practicing it, hearing yourself, you know, and just, yeah,
And
hear those words coming out of your mouth. Mhm.
maybe to those lines, like recording yourself can be helpful so that you can replay it and hear what you said and then say like, oh, maybe not that. Because I don't know, my brain don't be braining like that. So I'll forget exactly what I said.
What you think, America?
I would say being gentle with yourself
Mhm.
because it it's hard to unlearn a lot of these things.
Oh, for
And
sure.
Hmm.
they take a lot of intentional practice. They take a certain level of self-awareness. Um, and the same way you didn't learn it overnight, you're not going to unlearn it overnight. So,
Right.
really being careful when you're having these internal conversations. Well, I should be able to do this, and I'm not even
Hmm.
okay. Fair, and let's be nicer to ourselves than that. And
Right.
then I always encourage my clients when we're having these conversations, readjust what the goals are for the conversation. So
Hmm.
if you're having this conversation about your feelings because you're hoping it'll change another person or it'll change their perception, you're already going into it with the wrong goal.
Right.
Because there's a high probability that's not going to happen.
Right.
But if we go into these conversations about feelings around, my goal for this is to be able to communicate how I feel, period. I'm practicing using my voice when it shakes, right? So this is going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to do this for this reason for my own benefit. When
Right.
we think about it that way, it can make it feel more valuable because
Hmm.
that's something you have control over,
Right.
putting it in the hands of somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
love that.
sometimes when we shut down, yikes, when we shut down, it it has to do more with us than the situation. So yeah, everything you just said, America.
Absolutely. Well, I
Yeah,
feel like a lot just happened.
that was the end of the sermon, like,
Well, I hope that y'all got something great from this conversation. And if maybe you find yourself falling into those negative kind of communication styles, like hopefully you can use some of these tools so that you feel confident, advocating for yourself because you're worth it. And I just want to remind y'all that you can drink the kale smoothies, you can walk 20,000 steps a day, you can hike 15 miles, and you can do reformer Pilates. But if you are ignoring the things going on in your head and in your heart, then you're still not truly healthy. So go on ahead and seek therapy. Baby, we need it.
we out here.
Bye.